We think reading great Christian books is vital for spiritual growth, so we're asking significant Christian leaders which 3 books have changed their lives. Rachel Gardner is the founder of Romance Academy, a charity helping young people think about sex and relationships. She is the president of the Girls Brigade England and Wales and relation lead at Youthscape, a national youth charity committed to helping the UK find innovative ways to reach young people with the good news of Jesus. She lives with her ordained husband Jason and adopted daughter and helps to lead their local church. She is the author of Cherished, Beloved and The Dating Dilemma.
When I was 18, I picked a book out of my dad's shelf, this little tiny book with a really dodgy cover, and it was brown pages, and the language was quite old school, written in, I think, published in 1961. But it's called The Knowledge of the Holy by A.W. Tozer. And it really hit me because I was going through a period of my life where I'd grown up in a Christian family, but I kind of was growing up with Jesus, my buddy friend, and stuff was happening in my life, and I thought, actually, I need a big God. And I read this, and it just hit me, like in my heart, that if you don't have the right idea of who God is and His majesty, you kind of build a Christianity around you that's as small as your vision. I loved how he kind of talked about the great transcendence of God, His majesty, His power, but then he would touch on the immanence, the real intimacy, the closeness. And I remember reading it and thinking, I want more of God in my life like this. The God that A.W. Tozer knows, I want to know Him. And actually, I think for about 6 or 7 years after that, I read that every year. It's a book that kind of holds me captive and anchors me in who it is that I'm serving. So I've recently been reading The Unbelievable Gospel by Jonathan Dodson. I have to confess, it's not the kind of stuff I normally would read. I don't tend to read many books on evangelism. And the reason I struggled to read it initially was that I love chatting with people about Jesus. There are times when I get afraid and I don't. But part of me finds it really difficult that we need books teaching us how to do evangelism. But as I read it, I realised how subtle these defeaters are, and they're at work in my life and in the church. And living in a culture that totally undermines the existence of a God, and if there is a God, He can't be good, means that actually it does hold us back. And so what I love about this book is it presents some really clear arguments of what stops us, some ideas of how we can overcome that. But it ends with that killer idea that in the end, we talk about what we love. And actually, in the end, these great plans and schemes will be nothing if we don't love loving Jesus and love sharing Him. So I love where the book takes me and where it leaves me. So Brennan Manning has written a book called The Furious Longing of God, and the title says it all, doesn't it? And when I first read this book, I was looking for something to follow a linear pattern and argument, but that's not what you get with this book. What you get is the raw experience of a man who has lived, faced down the tough stuff and discovered God even there. He is a man who is very open about his brokenness, his alcoholism, his painful journey of stepping into the calling God has for him. And the reason I love his book is that he talks very simply but very powerfully about Jesus loving us with a wild love. And he quotes Catherine of Siena when she says, "When we are who we were made to be, we will set the world on fire." And this book, I think, sets stuff on fire. So this is a book that will stir you, set explosions going off in your brain, and encourage you to have a bigger vision of who God is and what He can do in your life.
I love Rachel's passion for reading. Wouldn't it be amazing if our churches were full of the same kind of hunger to understand more of God?
I read because I'm hungry. I read because I long to hear the words of God rolling around my mind when I go to bed at night. I read because I want to know more about the world that God's placed me in and the call of God on my life. I read because I want to know more about God's heart for things. I read because I love the fact there are men and women who have spent days and weeks and months pouring their heart into these words and wrestling with big issues. I read because I want to grow in character and in communication, and I read because actually I just love it.
I've got 3 really different books to recommend to you this month. The first is Whose Promised Land by Colin Chapman, the continuing conflict over Israel and Palestine. It's a big chunky book, but Colin Chapman brings 40 years of on-the-ground experience in the Middle East to help us understand the story behind the news stories. It's packed full of theology, politics, but also history. It's a fantastic book and well worth the read. The second book is a little bit lighter. It's by Matt Redmond and it's called 10,000 Reasons. Stories of faith, hope and thankfulness inspired by the worship anthem. I'm a big fan of Matt Redmond's songs because he helps us to worship God not just in the good times but in the tough times too. And here are some amazing stories of people whose lives have been changed by the song, but also the inside track about why he wrote the song in the first place. And my last book is called Mere Spirituality by Will Hernandez, The Spiritual Life according to Henry Nouwen. And somehow in my life I haven't yet read a Henry Nouwen book from cover to cover. So I thought I'd cheat and read this summary of Henry Nouwen's thought, and it's brilliant. It's really encouraging but really challenging. I really recommend it to you. Thanks for joining us on Books for Life this month. Please visit booksforlife.uk to see all of our videos and to stay in touch with all the latest books.